Hi girls, so in this lesson you're going to find out about what Manchester's economic opportunities are. So in other words, you're going to understand how Manchester makes money, so how the jobs have changed in Manchester. So we need to think about different types of jobs and different types of work in Manchester. So there are three types of work that you can do. There is primary work. So this is jobs like in farms, cutting down trees, or like fishing. It's where you're getting something from the land. So often we think of farming, the most simple kind of jobs that everyone needs to survive. Then we've got secondary jobs, and these are jobs where you are making something. So it's manufacturing in factories, industry, steelworks, shipping, so anything where you're making something. And we've got tertiary jobs. Tertiary are the service jobs where you're doing something for someone. So you could be working in a call centre, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an accountant. You are providing a job. You're not getting anything from the ground, you're not making something, you are providing a service. So primary is when we are getting something from the earth, so we might be mining or farming. Secondary is making something, so it could be a factory job. And tertiary is doing a service. In Manchester, this has changed over the time. So we've got a table here showing from 1911 to 2013, and we've got the different industries going on. Primary, secondary, and tertiary that I just mentioned. We should notice as we go down that the primary jobs start quite high, 22% of people are in them, and it reduces down to 0.5% in the more modern times. Secondary starts at about 8%, it increases to 13%, and then slowly starts to decrease as we go down into modern times. Whereas tertiary, no one was doing tertiary jobs to begin with, and that has increased over time. So we need to look at this mix. So if we look at it in a graph, we can see that it's just what we've talked about. 1911 has a very high primary work. It's got some secondary manufacture, but there's no tertiary work. In 1951, so skipping forward 50 years, lots of people work in the primary and secondary industry, and we're starting to get some services. Could be doctors and things like that. As we move forward, 1981, we've got not many people being farmers working in primary industry. Secondary has reduced a little bit, but it's still the highest. Tertiary has had a big increase. 1991, well, now we can see there's barely any primary. Secondary has decreased, and there's a lot more tertiary now. And then as we get into 2013, it's the complete opposite of the start. It's nearly zero primary, some secondary, not much, but loads of service jobs. So we're going to have a look at what that is like in Manchester. So in 1911, we saw in the graph that it was mostly primary jobs. You might think of Manchester looking like this in the past, and you think, well, there seems to be factories, maybe offices, shops, it can't be primary. There doesn't look like much farmland. But Manchester is a lot smaller back then than what we know today. This was what the city centre looked like, but just outside the city centre, in further parts of Manchester, like Rochdale. This is all farmland in Rochdale. There wasn't really anyone living there. There wasn't many industry. It was all farms. And even closer to the centre of Manchester, this is actually what Moss Side looked like in 1911. Lots of farmland and a few farmhouses, so most people will be working on this land, getting food for the people who live in Manchester. So 1911 was mostly primary jobs. In the 1950s, we saw in the graph that we had an increase of secondary jobs, working in factories and making things. Now Manchester had lots of factories in it, like you can see in this picture. Lots of them were used for making cotton, textiles, clothing, but there are also coal mining and manufacturing of other things, metalworks, steelworks. And of course the docks, which we now know as Salford Quays. This was the place, you can see in the background there's factories inside the docks. This was the place where they'd make the manufactured goods would get sent across. Lots and lots of people working in these docks in secondary jobs, making stuff, fixing the ships as well. As we get into modern times, we've got more tertiary jobs, and this is a different kind of jobs. So it could be call centres, working in shops, being a manager, it could be cleaning up offices. There's all sorts of different services you could be doing. And we've got examples of places that make a lot of money in Manchester because people have come here. So we've got Adidas, has actually got its national office for the UK in Stockport and a big warehouse in Trafford Park. The BBC has come to Manchester in Salford Quays. It's home for the North operations, so lots of the stuff it does is up there now. So lots of jobs providing services. Won't find any farmers there or anyone working in a factory. Same with fashion industries. We've got companies like Misguided, and this is their office in Manchester. It looks really nice. And other online companies like Boohoo. Again, they're selling stuff. They're providing a service. And this one's a little bit closer to home. This one's right next to Whalley Range High School off Princess Road there, Princess Parkway. It's the Siemens offices. They are called the Siemens Industry Automation and Drive Technologies office. Ooh. It's based in Siemens House in Withington, and it actually has its own train station in Ardwick, which is near Manchester Piccadilly Station. It's got its own train station. And this is what we call a science park. They do a lot of research and have a lot of services in there. Again, no one's really making stuff out of raw materials or farming. They are all doing services. So over time in Manchester, we've had a big shift from mainly primary industries back in the 1900s on farms, secondary industries in the after that in the early 1900s to the 1960s, working in factories, and now more modern times we are working in tertiary industry.